we are not going to be getting the top candidates externally if we only show them our AI face. We all have teams that have extremely talented people on them that really don't know where they're going to be in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And I think that is incumbent upon us as leaders to make sure that they have clarity and make sure that they understand, here's a roadmap for success in the business 2 years from now. Here's a roadmap for success 5 years from now, and what that looks like for them. We're getting to the point now where AI is sort of the magic box that everybody wants to put in place to take care of recruiting. And I don't think that's going to be the solution.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hiring Excellence Podcast. I'm Johnny Campbell, your host for today and the CEO of Social Talent. And today we're going to be digging into what's happening in recruiting. And I don't just mean generally what's happening. Our next guest has proposed that we're in the time of the great unbundling of the recruiter. Obviously influenced massively by AI, but I'm really intrigued to dig into this. We're going to touch on aspects of where the role is going, how teams are structuring themselves, what skills the future recruiter needs, and what are the paths into the industry for the future graduate who perhaps wants a career in TA. It's my pleasure to introduce Michael Kulak. Michael is the Global Director of Talent Acquisition for WBD, so Warner Brothers Discovery Games. And Michael is both a big fan of the gaming world. He's got a rich history in the gaming world, but also a big movie buff as well. So I think he found himself in the perfect home, combining those two cores of entertainment. He's made movies, produced movies on the side, has a rich history there as well, of course, being a wonderful TA leader. Michael, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show. You might introduce yourself, perhaps tell us about, why are you passionate about those two things, how you got into TA, where you're joining from, whatever you want to kick off with.
Yeah. So I'm in Northern California. We have a very diverse team. It's all over the place as far as globally. So, the location that we're generally working from is not always our home office. I go down to Burbank a lot for that, which is a lot of fun. I'll tell you I think I have one of the more untraditional intros into recruiting than most. As you said, I worked in production for many years. I had producer titles and worked in television. I think the bulk of my work has been in commercials and music videos. But many years ago, that career didn't allow for a full family life. I was traveling too much. So I changed careers and it really kind of fit into exactly what I was doing. I had the opportunity to build out at Activision Blizzard their esports program with the SVPs of the group. Because I had such a shorthand in entertainment, it allowed me to help build those teams out very easily. So we hired, I think it was about 350 people in the first 2 years, which was very exciting. $500 million project, really great fun there. And then from there, I kind of went into running the corporate recruiting team. So, that took me in a little bit of a different direction, but I actually ended up here about 3.5 years ago, running a game recruiting team that recruits for all 11 studios, actually 9 studios now. But that is probably an atypical path for most people in their professional careers. But for TA, it's kind of a standard. No one here ever went to school to to learn what TA does. So that we come from all walks of life. And I think that's part of what I see in the future as being maybe a roadblock for us.
As an aside, Michael, I didn't tell you this on our pre-call, but Social Talent actually partner with a university here in Ireland for what we think is the world's first ever degree in recruiting, a bachelor's degree in recruiting. And so we have folks who go on a 4-year program to be a recruiter. Our content is part of their curriculum as we do a kind of cooperation with the university. We're doing this about 6-7 years now. We've had about 3-4 cohorts fully graduate, and they work in the industry while they do that program. So there are finally recruiters who start life.
Finally. That is exciting. I didn't even know that was happening. And you know what that means is I can't use that joke anymore. So there
Well,
there
outside
is
Ireland,
actually a program.
you get away with it. So tell us, Michael. So for those not familiar with the gaming industry, and for those who are, tell us about maybe some of the titles that Warner Brothers Discovery produces, if
Sure,
they've
sure.
known any of them, and then maybe could you dig into the type of skills, therefore, your team would hire, the range of roles, are
Across
they
the board.
easy, are they
Yeah, yeah.
difficult? Yeah, love to hear more.
So you may be familiar with Hogwarts Legacy, the Hogwarts game that came out in 2023. That game did really well. We also produced Mortal Kombat, which has a deep, deep history. All of the Lego games, Lego Batman, which is about to launch in May, Star Wars, et cetera. All those games were produced through Warner Brothers. We have sort of a diverse slate of games. We deal with DC Universe. We deal with all these different licensed products. And the roles that we generally hire for are everything across the business, from the junior devs to lighting artists to marketing and publishing, all of the different facets of gaming. And the great part about that is I have a very specific team of gaming recruiters that have been doing this for multiple years and have a great knowledge, not just of the industry, but of the details of each individual role. So they can pretty much jump into these conversations knowing exactly what the hiring manager is going to need or want, because they're so familiar with it, which is fantastic. And it actually leads into a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today, in the fact that there's very specific types of recruiting that happen across the business that leaders of the business and sometimes even TM leaders don't differentiate. They think it's a bit of a monolith, and that recruiting is done on the side. That's great. They'll do their thing and they'll send us the people. But there's a lot of nuance in there that I think a lot of leadership don't even realize. So, I can jump into a little bit of that if
Yeah, I wouldn't mind breaking it down, because I did start this with this idea of the great unbundling, right? I'm recording in 2026, and a lot of teams would have, let's say, a full stack recruiter, or they might have maybe a 180 recruiter, where you have maybe sourcing side and you've got client side. But you are seeing this as beginning to fragment even more than that, right? As technology, AI, RPA changes the way we work. Talk to me about how you're seeing that traditional 360 full stack recruiter role begin to develop, and why that's a good or bad thing.
Yeah, well, so first off, I think it's you have to state there's a sort of a large optimism gap inside of recruiting right now. So leadership sees all this AI, they think, oh, I'm going to automate all these processes from end to end and make everything run smoothly, whereas individual contributors are a little bit worried about their future and where they're going. And this is kind of how I try to lead, is looking at sort of both sides at the same time. One of the things that I've noticed is we've never had a full stack recruiter that is it's great at everything. Either their documentation suffers, or they're not great at making offers, or whichever part. So what I think, in my estimation, is for the future, there'll be a little bit more of a specific breakdown on what recruiters are going to do. So, you have some more tech-minded recruiters. Like I have one recruiter on my team that is constantly in AI. He brings things to the team that nobody ever thought about. He's extremely efficient at it. And, in the future, his role will most likely be that of someone that manages how our sourcing is done, how the AI prompts are done, and deals specifically with the agents. Whereas I have other recruiters that, aren't great on the tech side. They click through everything they need to, but they're not going to be innovators in that field. But they are incredible at closing deals, having a conversation with candidates, really kind of reassuring people and selling the roles, which we all know sales is a huge part of recruiting. So as those sort of break out and AI becomes the tool that we use inside of the different gaps, meaning, top of funnel, scheduling, maybe helping with feedback correlation and other parts, these recruiters are going to find that their remit shrinks. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us to start to pre-identify what that is, and see where they're gonna thrive. And this does two things. One, it indemnifies us against future state where we don't have the right manpower in different places. And it also helps the recruiters know that we are thinking about them, we're helping them train, we're helping them get to a good place. And so I think one of the things that I've seen, and the reason that this came about in my head was there's always a backlash to these things. So we went through a huge hiring bonanza in 21, 22 with, the Great Resignation. People were building teams. And now everyone is saying, AI is going to take over all of these different jobs and we can reduce our workforces. But as people are let go, we're finding that the AI is not filling that bill yet. And I'm not saying what's going to happen 5-10 years from now, but we're finding that those gaps are there and we're hiring those people back. And so, one of the things that I think is really important is that we don't take this too far too fast, because that talent is not going to be there when it comes time to, fill these gaps again. So you'll have AI for different parts of the funnel. There's going to be certain parts that for the foreseeable future will still be human. And so my goal is to train my team and help to others to train their teams on what that future looks like and help to identify where their strengths are in that world. Hope that all answers that question.
It does. So when we think about, the opportunities for maybe let's deal with the automation and the AI first. What is it good for that you've seen? What are the areas you think are opportunities for us to actually put technology that begin to then change the role of the human?
So what I would say, and keep in mind, adoption levels are different across different companies. There's different industries, different businesses. I've heard tell of large hiring at FedEx and UPS with automation, where the first time a person talks to someone is on their first day. And that's fantastic for high volume recruiting, but there's so many little nuances and pieces there that just won't fit into every recruiting stack. I'd say that the first thing is obviously top of funnel. If we can dial in how that process works for each individual role, for each individual industry, then we can use that automation across the board to eliminate a lot of the processes and time lags that we have on our end. Like, for instance, we get roles that get 5,000 applicants in the first 3 or 4 days. That is an unreasonable amount of people to go through for a recruiter. So we need that automation to sort of narrow it down and get it to a manageable place, 100, 200 people that are viable. I think scheduling and logistics around operations are all open fields for AI to take over and actually improve the process, because you look at it two different ways. You look at our time to hire is a metric that we use, and that is what automation and AI is good for. Quality of hire is where the human comes in. And really what that does is that brings us to sort of that human layer of trust, clarity on the role, conversations, like closing negotiations, all of these different metrics that we don't always allow for or put into our goals for the year, basically. And so those metrics, I think, are going to raise up what the quality of what recruiters do, how that's shown to the business, how it's shown to our leaders. And honestly, and this is going down a different road, I think there's a case to be made for TA having a little bit of a larger seat at the table. And I think this is how we're going to get there. I think showing quality of hire, showing all of these different metrics, the time to impact is a really big metric that's looking at right now. Those things are really where I think human recruiters are going to shine. There's always been some automation in what we do. We're going to take that further and make it seamless. But I think there's human elements, at least for the foreseeable future, that we can't get around. I'll be honest with you, there's talent out there that will not respond to AI. They won't take that automated call. And those are going to be use cases where we say, okay, well, if you're not interested in this automated call, we do really like your resume, and here's a live recruiter. So there's some nuance here that we're gonna have to jump into.
You mentioned some of the kind of very human touch experiences where you think there's an opportunity to double down and improve upon. Can you maybe highlight some of what you think are the key areas that are perhaps more ring fenced for human only or human driven, where you think, okay,
Yeah,
this is something
yeah,
where there's quality work, maybe some examples you've seen as well, and maybe will be helpful, Michael.
yeah. So I think it's going to break down into sort of different buckets. So we're going to have individuals that are more of the candidate concierge, where they'll use automation for sure to keep contact and regular emails going out and other things, but there'll be a human touch in there, which is at the beginning of the process, making sure that they know that there's a human involved, and at the end of the process, closing those deals, selling the business if necessary, and putting that into place. There'll be an AI system manager, which is a more technical role. That role will deal with sourcing and research and sort of quantifying everything that needs to go into that role, and really kind of helping to hone what the AI is looking for, and I think that role is going to be extremely technical. I think there's people right now that are not in recruiting that will fall into that role because it's going to be a skill set that's needed across the board in many different fields. Meaning, if you are doing this for HR, or you're doing this for tech roles, there's a theme there of understanding the technology and manipulating it to get what you need. And so those people may not even have in their head right now that TA is a destination for them. So that's what we have to open up to. And then there'll be sort of the larger strategic roles, which are today's managers, today's directors and VPs that deal with the business and where everything wants to go, and they use that market insight from the tech teams. They're possibly doing employee branding and marketing. There's the overall larger picture where I think someone could very much thrive in that environment, being that partner to the business and bringing new metrics and new ideas to the table that we haven't thought of before. So in this process, I think there's a hybrid between each one. Everybody's kind of understanding what the process is and what we need to get out of it. But I think it's going to get very much more specific in the roles that we have, because sort of the days of the end-to-end recruiter probably coming to the end of that, if that makes sense.
Is there a danger though, Michael, in that, whilst on one side to have the specialisms exist and have people be deep experts in different parts of recruiting gives obvious expertise in that area, you become better at negotiating, or you become better at sourcing, or you become better at insights, or you become better at branding, you become better at selling, etc. That fundamentally the relationship is between two humans, the the hiring manager and the person who gets hired. And if either have to deal with four or five people, there's friction, there's miscommunication, there's lack of alignment, there's lack of relationship building. So how do you balance that potential splintering of different responsibilities with perhaps a human need or desire to keep to one connection or a common connection?
Yeah. So my thought process on that is that concierge will not just be for candidates. It will be
And
for the entire process for the hiring manager, and that's their partner. That concierge will deal with the tech teams that are doing everything on the back end to help support getting what we need. They'll be taking their marching orders on what the structure should look like, and the specifics around team build from the individual that's in that management position. And so I think we have to look at two things when it comes to sort of this human touch. It's external and internal. So we are not going to be getting the top candidates externally if we only show them our AI face. If we show them, hey, apply here or talk to this chatbot, or just submit your resume and we'll call you. That sort of thing is not where sort of that high end purple squirrel pink unicorn world is, we need to have somebody that really can take the AI data, translate that into a human touch, and have that contact with that person. And I there's a world where we start every email with, "I am not AI. I'd love to talk to you." And
Mm.
there that's on the external part. And then the internal part, I think hiring managers are comfortable with AI to an extent. So generally putting their requirements in a system, having it spun up, having approvals happen on that end, that works for them because it's usually efficient and it gets them to the point where the requisition's open. But they're going to need also a concierge inside and want to talk to a human and have that human help to translate what their needs are, along with the role description, to the person that's going to help to find it. And so it is basically the same structure that we have now, but with a much more specialized feel. So that person that's the concierge will not be doing all of the tweaking of what the search looks like. They won't be doing any of the back end data or any of that other part. So I think this is where we have that opportunity to play to strengths of our existing teams. And one of the things, and I don't want to jump too far ahead here, but one of the things that I often think about is, with all of the different paths that we took to get here, no one really knows exactly who's going to end up in TA. You mentioned that you guys have a training course, which is fantastic, a huge first step. But if you talk to 100 different TA individuals, you'll get 100 different stories on how they got there. But most of them have started off with either as an RC or a sourcer, where they learn the ropes, they work in ops, they figure out how all this works. And I fear, like many industries, we're going to lose that junior talent. There's a funnel that comes up for us in this process where you identify people you have on your team, whether it's as a coordinator or a sourcer, and you identify that, hey, this person actually can take the next step. They should be a recruiter, junior level, professional level, whatever. And in the future, because we're automating so many of those junior role tasks, I'm kind of fearful for what we're going to get as far as individuals that want to move into sort of these senior recruiting spaces. So I think it's going to have to be a conscious effort on our end to cultivate that and make sure that we have roles specifically designed that are, maybe human in the process roles, where that person monitors what's going on, make sure that we're checking what AI is doing, and they're learning the process at the same time. And so, I think we need to, as an industry, think about how are we going to make those roles applicable to learning, as well as being functional for the team and giving people sort of that fulfillment. So there's, like I stated earlier, there's always a backlash. There's always like a rebound on these things. And we're getting to the point now where AI is sort of the magic box that everybody wants to put in place to take care of recruiting. And I don't think that's going to be the solution. I really think that we're going to have a loss of jobs. We're going to have a loss of process, and these tools ultimately in certain sections will fail us. And there's sections like we talked about, concierge type sections where making offers and having that human touch are going to be necessary. And we're going to be hiring people back and saying, hey, just kidding, we need your skill set. And then a few years from now, where do we get the people that actually have that skill set if we haven't purposely trained for it, if that makes sense?
I might dig into one of those examples, if I can offer my opinion, which is the making offers, making the offer human, 100%. You want the person who has the relationship with the candidate. You've built up trust. We all know that the negotiation process begins with the first word. It doesn't begin with the offer at the end. It's all the way through. You've been negotiating, building that relationship. But nobody needs a human to write the contract. No one needs a human to dot the I's, cross the T's. So you think of even that making an offer. There's elements that are 100% human. There's elements that are 100% machine. Make sure that we've translated the offer correctly. Make sure the terms and conditions are right, the jurisdictions right, the benefits are in there. I do want to pour through the admin of doing all that stuff, getting it approved through our processes. They're beautifully AI or process automation things that we should invest in. So I think sometimes people think of a stage as being all human or all AI, but actually there's nuance. Okay, even in the stage, there's parts that are mixed, wholly one or wholly the other. And it's teasing out those things as important, I think, in this. But I do want to come back to your point around the career pathing, right? Because this is a challenge not just for recruiting. I think it's a challenge for so many different careers. And I get it. Like I was a junior recruiter, came in from university with no plan to be in recruitment, fell into it because I was interviewed one day. They mistakenly thought I'd apply for the recruiter job. So I bluffed and pretended I did. Of course, ended up in recruiting. Like this is, it's a traditional story. I was looking for a different job and ended up with this job. No regrets, mind you. But when you think of those routes into the careers like recruiting, like, are you thinking more like an apprenticeship type program? Like, how will it work? Like, 'cause budget has to be given or time has to be given to train someone up. So, like, how will it work? Or maybe if you haven't seen it in recruiting, have you seen it in other careers or sectors where you think maybe that model might work in our area?
Yeah, and apprenticeship is a valid way to do that. I think the fundamental piece there, which is the hardest to tackle, is budget. Where do we get the budget to bring on somebody that maybe is not as productive towards our end goal as we need to? And so that's where we have to get creative with roles. Meaning, is this person an apprentice for concierge side, for the data side? What do they bring to the table? What industry do they come from, or where do they want to go? And I think the big piece there is there's there's no standard archetype. We're going to find individuals that are applying for roles in recruiting that are just not qualified, and we need to make sure that there is a path for those individuals. And I would say that there is a human in the process role that is going to need to be there in the future. So as we reduce the size of recruiting teams and we get these more specialty roles, there will be parts of this that actually still need to be monitored that those individuals won't have that ability to do. And it can lean on project management. It can lean on all of the data side. I think there's a world where there's tech recruiters that will understand the languages Python and C plus and all these things so well that they'll be able to run the code reviews and everything with the candidates for the hiring managers. So there's such a variety of roles that people can get into here. And so I think you're right that this is going to be the hard part for us, trying to figure out how to justify that budget, trying to figure out exactly what the role is. And to your earlier point, there's no role that won't be touched by AI. The concierge, the tech person, everybody in this process is going to have AI in their process at some point. I would never ever want to write another contract. I've amended enough of those in my life, and I don't think anybody else enjoys it either. And so I think that part definitely can be automated and perfected, even to the point where all of the different parts of an offer, meaning bonuses and equity and all these other things, are easy pull downs. It's you figure it out really quickly and have those output. But I think we really need to think about what the future looks like when we sort of eliminated a lot of these early career jobs, and we don't have that talent pool 5 years from now when we decide, oh no, we need people that can do this part of the job, this human touch part, this part that's not automated. And so I don't have all the answers on it. I don't know exactly where it's all going to go, but I think it's something that we need to consider. And I think it's twofold. One, because the business is going to have that bounce back at some point and realize they need more of that human touch. But two, we have existing teams out there that are scared for their future. We all have teams that have extremely talented people on them that really don't know where they're going to be in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And I think that is incumbent upon us as leaders to make sure that they have clarity, and make sure that they understand, here's a roadmap for success in the business 2 years from now. Here's a roadmap for success 5 years from now, and what that looks like for them. And to be honest, there's going to be some people that just don't fit those molds. We're probably gonna have a thinning of recruiting teams over the next few years. But I really do think that if we work at this together, we can get it to the point where there's a career path, there's individuals that are interested in it, and we've given them sort of a new meaning for what their job does.
Can I maybe steal an idea that was novel a few years ago, right? Popularized maybe in that peak of the Great Recession, as it came to an end, 22, 23, which was this idea of skills first hiring. But if you look at that in its truest form, right, Michael, maybe the solution to this and the direction we might be going is that, we no longer build careers in a profession. We build expertise in a skill. And so, for example, you have people who are sellers, as in sellers, they sell ideas, sell products, sell messaging, sell whatever. There are people who generate interest. There are people who are great with data. There are people who are organized and build structure. There are people who are operational and tactical. As you think about, instead of an on-ramp into recruiting, you might think of an on-ramp into negotiation or relationship management. You think of what the on-ramps are into data processing. You think the on-ramp into organizing work to be done. And you think of those individuals can move to any career, any part of the business, and they can move around. So, for example, if you look at those, that unbundling of recruiting into those tasks, someone who's great at relationship management, we might never hire somebody in as a graduate recruiter, but what we do is we bring somebody in at the right level who has relationship management experience, and we apply it to recruiting. Or we bring somebody who is brilliant at AI processes, and we apply it to recruiting. And those folks, rather than worrying about getting a job in sales or getting a job in tech or getting a job in recruiting, instead they're focused on skill building. And we have to think differently, truly be skills first about how do we give on ramps as an organization to the skills, maybe which is easier. And then what we need to do is understand how do we make sure we have the right skills in the team. Because you're probably like me, Michael. I worked with so many recruiters who were ex-accountants, ex-developers, ex-product managers, and became recruiters. Like, it's your point around there is no one route to be a recruiter. I was a grad, kind of an unusual route to be a recruiter actually at the time. Most of my colleagues had other jobs. They were in sales, they ran restaurants, God knows what. So I don't love your thoughts on that kind of the connection of that skills first approach to maybe solving this.
Absolutely. I think you're right in that somebody that has that skill for sales and closing, or somebody that has that skills in data, if they are skilled in a certain aspect of this that is translatable to other fields, they have more choice, which is fantastic. One of the things that I caution against is when you have people that are creating the process, that work in operations or know the tools inside and out, but have not had the experience with recruiting or being on the team and understanding sort of the end-to-end process, they have difficulty designing the process for the candidates, hiring managers, and recruiters. And that has been constant throughout my career. We implemented Workday Recruit at Activision Blizzard. I was a lead on that project, and I can tell you the requests from different departments that were tech focused made absolutely no sense in a recruiting mindset. You know what I mean? So I think yes, we have the ability to take skill sets, move them to our teams and utilize those skill sets. But we also have to make sure that they have a fundamental background and understanding in what we do. Because a lot of times if you don't have that nuance and you don't understand where recruiting fails and where it succeeds, you're just going to write code or make the AI the way that you think it should work best because it's efficient, but it doesn't work for the hiring teams. And so I think that's a fine balance. I think there is that industry to industry mobility, which is going to be great. But I also think that we need to make sure we guard against losing the essence of what recruiting is. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense, Michael, and I never want to lose that essence of what recruiting is. I really enjoy kind of hearing your thoughts on this. You're living it and breathing it day to day, Michael. If anyone is listening to this podcast or watching today, I would love to reach out to you with further thoughts, get your advice, see how they can give you free money. Where might they reach you? What's the best way to get a hold of you, Michael?
LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I try to respond to everybody. It's a daunting task at times, but I love meeting new people.
There is a bot that we need AI to help us with in terms of LinkedIn responses and messages and highlighting it all for us. Michael, absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. Really good to hear your thoughts, particularly around early in career recruiters, how we reshape that in the future, what those risks are. They're real risks. You're right. I don't think any of us have the answers, but I love your thought process. I love that you're spending the time thinking about this. This is the right way to think. And hopefully we'll have solved it all before the AI bots take over everything, Michael, and we're sitting on the beach drinking pina coladas.
Thanks for having me, Johnny. I appreciate it.
Not at all. Real pleasure. And thank you for listening and joining us this week and hearing about Michael's journey, but also about that great unbundling of recruiting, how it is splintering into different roles. Love to get your opinions. Are you seeing this yourself in your teams as well? Do you have a different approach? Do you have a solution to some of the things we discussed on the show today? Please drop it in the show notes or comments. And we'd love to maybe have you on as our guest next to share your version of that. Until then, we'll be back next week. We're actually going to be moving quite soon, if we're not already here, to twice a week on the podcast, which we're really excited about. We'll have 2 shows a week as well. So cramming in the ideas. There's so much innovation, so much going on in recruiting in this world at the moment that we can't just leave it to one guest a week. So we'll be upping that game over the next few weeks. And again, if you're interested in joining us or you have a recommendation, please reach out to the team. You can reach us at podcast@socialtalent.com. Otherwise, don't forget to follow us wherever you listen to the podcast, on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, or wherever it may be. We'll be back next week with another great show. Until then, take care.